All right, I've got the new Mizuno JPX925 line. We're going to be testing them out today against the Mizuno JPX923 line and see what changed. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day. So we've got the new Mizuno JPX925s that have recently been released. That includes the Hot Metal Pro, the Hot Metal High Launch, and the Fly High. And we're going to be comparing them all against their predecessors. We're going to look at what has changed, what's remained the same, and see how do these new 925s stack up against the previous model. Hey, make sure also, if you're enjoying this video, go down below, like it, and subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate it. Thanks. All right, let's ease our way into this. So I'm starting off with the High Launch, which is one of, if not the most forgiving options when it comes to these 9 or JPX series irons. I'm going to start off and just get a few baseline shots with the 923, just so we have something to compare the new 925 against. All right, so first up, we've got JPX 925 High Launch. This club, again, as the name implies, is the higher or the highest launching version of the 3 traditional irons. 7-iron loft in this is 31 degrees, so a much more traditional setup to it that way. Setting up with this club versus the 923, they really look very similar. Two biggest differences that Mizuno is touting is, or the updates that Mizuno is touting is an improvement in their core technology, which is supposed to give you more uniform ball speed, whether you hit it on the toe or the heel or high or low or wherever you miss it. It's supposed to give you more consistent ball speed and hopefully more consistent distance because of that. The other thing is they've moved around the weighting a little bit more, so it's supposed to be now giving us maybe a touch higher launch and a little bit steeper descent angle on landing. So we'll kind of keep track of that, see how it does versus the 923, see if we notice any difference. The loft, again, at 31 is identical to the 923, so we're pretty well comparing apples and apples here. Looking down at this club versus the 923 looks pretty close. When you take a close-up look at it, obviously the back is slightly redesigned, so it looks a little different, but the face doesn't really look much different to me. The top line, looking down on the club behind the ball, very similar. When you look at it at this angle, kind of looking at the sole of it, it does actually look a little bit wider here, but I think that's really just sort of the finish that they put on it. Previous model, they switched between the brushed finish on the front part and then went to a more chrome look on the trailing edge, and that made it look maybe a little bit thinner overall. This one, they went full brushed all the way across it, and it looks a little bit thicker when you just look at it, but when you set them side by side, they're pretty close. So I think it's really more just cosmetic than anything else. Finally hit a good one. We'll see. I definitely hit it kind of all over the face on this, so we'll definitely get to see if that core tech has anything going for it. First off, carry yardage, and more importantly, what I was wanting to see was the dispersion short to long. And as you can see, with the standard deviation being a little lower, we were a little more consistent short and long versus the 923. I kind of mishit some with each of them, and as you can see, left and right, I was much wilder with the 925, but short to long was a little bit better. The other thing that we wanted to look at again is that launch angle slash descent angle. And once again, even though these have the same loft, I did get a little bit higher launch and a little bit steeper descent angle out of the 925. That was a better one there. Remember, now that we are in the hot metal, not the high launch, these are more aggressively lofted, so we would expect to see the distances and the height be a little bit further and a little bit lower compared to that high launch. But there's a sample, pretty reasonable sample, I would say, of the 923 hot metal. Let's switch into the 925, see how it compares. Okay, 925 hot metal. Once again, setting the club behind the ball, it looks very, very similar to the 923. When you look at the back of it, again, similar to the 925 high launch, just a little redesign there. I do also like, and this really is not going to faze most of you in any way, shape, or form, but each of these new heads, the Pro, the hot metal, the high launch, has a little bit different coloring here in the logo. So the standard hot metal is silver, the high launch is blue, the Pro is more of a dark gray or black. It's a little bit more obvious. The 923s had some very slight variations in the coloring, but they were it was kind of a little inconspicuous when you were looking at them. And so sometimes I'd inadvertently hand somebody the wrong head because they looked so similar if I wasn't really paying attention. These, with this more obvious coloring, it's going to be a little easier to pick one versus the other. Again, for you guys out there, won't really make any difference, but it's nice for me. When you look at the sole of it, it kind of looks a little bit thicker compared to the 923, but again, it's got that same coloring difference where you go from the brush to the chrome in the 3, and now it's all brushed in the 5, and so when you look at them side by side, they really, I think they're pretty much identical. Now the other thing to be aware of with these, loft is slightly different on the new model. In this 7-iron, it's a ½ degree stronger than in the 923. So the high launch, same loft. In the hot metal, some of the lofts vary a little bit, drop a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the launch and the descent angle with this new one, which are supposed to now be a little bit higher, but we now have a slightly lower lofted head. So is it going to cancel out? Will we still see that difference? We'll have to wait until we get all the numbers at the end to find that out. And that one was a little low on the face, but we'll keep it because that probably is a perfect test. All right, again, the two big things that they're highlighting is a little bit more consistent distance in this new model and a little bit higher launch and steeper descent angle. Let's take a look first off on the carry and that standard deviation. And again, at least in this sample, a little bit tighter short to long, a little bit more consistent. And I definitely didn't hit all those shots great, but we are definitely a little more consistent short and long with that carry distance. Looking at the launch angle, again, we see the launch angle here has gone up again. We're about 1 degree higher, just like we were in the high launch. And again, this is with a ½ degree lower lofted set 7-iron. So definitely a little bit higher. Let's look real quick at the descent angle average between the two. And again, just a slightly steeper descent angle with that hot metal. So right now we are 2 for 2 with the new iron kind of doing what it says it's supposed to do. Okay, 925, all the same things we've said about the other ones we can apply to this. Similar look, again, sole looks slightly different because of the slightly different finish on it. The overall look behind the ball, very similar. Lofts, again, just like the hot metal, these lofts are slightly stronger, so we will again sort of pay attention to that when we look at the final launch angle and the final descent angle. Oh, that one was a little bit high toe on that one. We'll keep it in because it definitely was not hit well, so we're going to make that technology work. That one was a little bit thin, a little low on the face, so again, be interesting to see what happens with that guy. All right, here's the numbers. Once again, first thing we want to look at is that carry, and specifically how tight our dispersion was short to long. Again, looking at the standard deviation on the 925, we were a little bit better, a little bit tighter short and long with that 925. Again, the other thing we want to look at, that launch angle, because even though this 925 has a ½ degree lower loft to it, again, my average launch angle was about 1 degree higher. Let's go ahead and check that also with the descent angle. Descent angle, again, 46.8 in the 923, 47.9 in the 925. So once again, a little bit steeper descent angle. All right, JPX 925, fly high. This one does have a few changes that I think are a little more noticeable. First off, loft on this has gone a full degree lower, so 29 degree on the 923, 28 degree on this new 925. The other two differences that I pick up on, when you look down at the sole of it, yeah, it's slightly different, but it looks basically the same. But when you set it behind the ball or when you look down on it, you will notice that the 923 had a bit of a point up here on the toe, almost like a cone head kind of look to it. This one, the 925, is much more rounded off overall. I think it looks a little better, honestly, than the previous one that did have a bit of it was sort of an odd little tip there on the toe side. The other difference is the 923 finish on it was really an extremely dark gray, close to black, and this one is a much lighter shade of gray. Still not light, it's still medium gray, but a little bit lighter than the previous model. I think I like that more because it at least more closely resembles the coloring of the irons, so I think that probably makes sense to have it be just a little lighter. But let's see what happens. Oh, how is that? So-so. Full disclosure, I am not a huge fan of these higher lofted hybrids. I will just say that. I always have a little trouble kind of figuring out what I'm supposed to be doing with them. All right, come on, straighten it out. That was better. Okay, quick look at these numbers. Again, looking at the carry. In this case, the 925 didn't really improve anything as far as the short to long dispersion. We did get a little higher launch angle on this one, and we did also, I think, we did also get a little sharper descent angle, but I was favoring the right-hand side a little more with this 925. I don't know exactly why that was, but it was definitely more to the right, and so that probably as much as anything is going to account for the higher launch and the steeper descent angle with that club. All right, there you go. All the new 925s compared to the predecessor, the 923. Look, if you've watched enough of my videos, you probably know that I am a pretty skeptical person when it comes to golf club, golf equipment claims. But in this case, at least with the 3 irons, the Pro, the Hot Metal, the High Launch, they all did show me tighter dispersion, short and long, and higher launch with steeper descent angles. The only one that fell outside of that was the Fly High, where I didn't really see any improvement. In fact, maybe slightly worse on my short and long. And any difference that I saw in the height and in the descent angle is really based on the fact that I was missing everything more to the right versus the 923 that was a little bit more centered or left. But definitely with all those new irons, they lived up to what the claims were. So if you are looking for a new set of irons, I would definitely consider these JPX 925s. Would I move from the 923 to the 925? Probably not. I don't think there's in any way enough of a difference there to move straight from a Hot Metal 923 to a Hot Metal 925. But if you're coming from an older model, if you're coming from a different model, or if you're switching from maybe the High Launch or the Hot Metal into the Pro, well then, yeah, I think these 925s definitely are checking the boxes, doing what they say they are supposed to do. So there you go. Oh yeah, and they're Mizuno, so they feel really good. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you go down below, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you'll be alerted when I post new videos. If you're interested in a fitting for like these Mizuno 925s, or for anything else we carry, or you're interested in a custom build or a repair, all my contact information is down below, and I will see you on the next video.